If you've clicked on this video, you're interested to learn more about GenAI tools and Alteryx. Now, I have created a full video on how to use the prompt tool and the LLM override tool in Alteryx. This is called the Alteryx GenAI tools step-by-step video. In that video, I will teach you how to build a workflow like this that involves using a bunch of GenAI tools step by step. So if you haven't watched that video, I would highly encourage you to watch that video first before you click on this one. Now, just to give you a very high-level overview of what this workflow is, here we have data for a fictitious company. This data was created by ChatGPT, and here we're interested to figure out whether or not we are paying our top-performing employees accurately. So we filtered this down to only employees who have a performance rating higher than 4, and then we asked two prompts, right? The very first one was to create some sort of a category that tells us whether or not we are paying our top performing employees accurately. So here we're saying, tell me if the salary we are paying to this employee who has this particular job title in this particular location and this specific years of experience is fairly paid or not. And here we're creating a very simple column, fairly paid or see AI's advice, right? And now we're also interested to see what AI's advice is based on these certain parameters on whether or not we're accurately paying our employees. So that is done through another tool, another prompt tool. And that happens over here, wherein we are saying, tell me in a sentence, if the salary that we're paying to this employee who has this specific job title in this specific location and this specific years of experience is fair or not. Now, if you remember, we grouped this by department, and then we looked at the results, okay? Now, all of this is great, right? In this video, we'll be specifically talking about what are some of the best practices to keep in mind when you're using AI in Alteryx, okay? Now, AI in analytics is great. That is the direction in which analytics is very organically heading towards. But there are some of the things that we have to keep in mind when we are building workflows that is leveraging AI tools. The very first one, and the most important one, is the cost that is involved in creating workflows like this, okay? Now, every workflow, every single time when you're going to run this workflow, it is going to consume certain tokens, right? So this specific workflow is using OpenAI through OpenAI tokens, and every single time this workflow runs, it consumes those tokens. So how do we, at a very high level, estimate the total amount of cost that it's going to take to run a workflow like this? Now, keep in mind that if you're using ChatGPT models or OpenAI models, these models are pay as you go, right? So can we do some sort of estimation in terms of tokens and a dollar value and the amount of content that you're able to create with those tokens? So hang on there, because I did create a prompt with ChatGPT to get an answer like that, okay? It's a very simple table over here. We've got all these models, right? These are some popular ChatGPT models, and they have a price range. Now remember, it's pay as you go, but this is approximate price range for 1,000 tokens. And one of the things that we're noticing over here is the total number of tokens that is consumed for $1, okay? So you're going to see over here that that's close to 250,000 to 500,000, right? So this can become fairly expensive if we are not moderating how much it would cost us to run a workflow like this. Now, how do we control it? That's where some best practices come to mind, right? And a really cool thing about the GenAI tools is that Alteryx by default gives you, in the default configuration, it has a specific number of maximum output tokens that you can use, right? So if I go in here, it's going to tell you that maximum output tokens is 32,000, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, whatever prompt that I am passing to the model, that is also going to consume certain tokens, right? Keep in mind that the total amount of tokens that are consumed, that includes both input and output, right? Whatever sentence that you're passing to your OpenAI model or whatever model that you're using is going to have certain tokens consumed. And the final token count that you're going to get is going to be the sum total of the number of words. And it's not an exact one-to-one ratio, but it's going to be the sum total of the amount of tokens that is consumed in your input, which is the prompt, and the output, which is the result. Okay. So when you hover over this max output token, Here you have the ability to reduce the total number of tokens or increase the number of tokens depending upon your specific use case. So if we hover over this little information icon over here, it says 50 to 100 for short answers, labels, and summaries, 200 to 400 for standard responses, and 800 plus for long form content or in-depth responses. Okay. So here we're saying, tell me in a sentence, right? So it's not, we're not planning to have a whole essay of a response. So definitely there are opportunities to reduce the maxed output tokens over here. Now, the same applies to our other prompt, which was asking to create a category, right? And in this case, we're just creating two categories, whether the employee is fairly paid or we should see AI's advice. And over here as well, we're saying that maximum output token is 32,000. Now, like I said, this is going to be the default value, but the amount of the number of tokens that would be consumed in the response would be very low, right? In this case, it's going to be close to 50 to 100. And again, it's not an exact 1-to-1 ratio, but it's going to be a less amount. So we don't need to have a lot of tokens entered over here. Now, keep in mind that just because it says maximum output token is equal to 32,000, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to consume 32,000 if the total number of tokens that are consumed by your input and output is less than 32,000. Okay, keep that in mind. That for more essay-like responses that your workflow might create, that's where controlling the maximum amount of tokens that your workflow would output or your GenAI tool would output becomes important. Another thing that's important to keep in mind in terms of optimizing workflows that are leveraging GenAI tools is to refine and test in Prompt Builder. So we haven't talked about the Prompt Builder before. Now, this is an excellent functionality that Alteryx offers. In this case, we have the ability to test certain prompts before we apply it to the entire data set. Now, this data set obviously doesn't have millions and millions of rows. Obviously, this was data, like I said, created by ChatGPT. I believe it had like 17 to 20 rows. But what's really cool about the prompt builder is you can not only test different prompts over here or have AI generate a prompt for you, but you have the ability to test out different models over here. In addition to that, you have the ability to apply whatever output that the model or the prompt result value is to certain number of records, right? So in this case, you can say that, okay, well, I don't want a response for all of my 20,000 rows. I would want my prompt to just be tested to 4 to 5 different rows, and then I would want to see what value I'm getting. If the value that I'm getting is the kind of response that I'm expecting, then I will proceed in this direction of applying this entire model or this entire prompt to my entire data set. And that's where token consumption and cost comes in. Now, in this specific use case, we've got two prompts over here. If there's any error in any of these prompts, we'd want to make sure that the second prompt does not execute. Okay. So over here, and we already have this configuration available in the Alteryx tool. And over here, we have error handling option, right? So you can say that, okay, well, if there is an error that happens in this tool over here, I wouldn't want this workflow to process any further, right? Now, this becomes really handy when you've got like prompts that is consuming a lot of tokens, right? And values from this prompt is necessary to input to another prompt that you're leveraging in the workflow. And if one of the outputs are not correct, again, it's using generative AI, so there's a high possibility that the model can hallucinate, right? So if one of the outputs are not correct, then that same bad data gets passed downstream, and then not only it gives you bad outputs, but it also consumes tokens. And if you remember, there's a cost factor that is tied with, depending upon what model you're using or depending upon how many tokens you're leveraging as a part of your generative AI prompt. So we don't want to pay for a lot of tokens consumed if the outputs that we are getting is not something that's expected. Okay. And the final recommendation would be to make sure that you are prepping the data. Everything is prepped and cleaned before it's passed to the prompt tool, right? Now, one of the other things that you can do with prompt tool is connect multiple prompt tools together, right? But if you are processing the data downstream and applying a bunch of different transformation to it after it gets passed to the prompt tool, and then using another prompt tool, connecting that to another prompt tool, and then massaging the data or cleaning the data a little bit more, then from a workflow optimization standpoint, that's not the best route to follow, right? Because then the first time when you're passing the data to your prompt tool, it doesn't have the clean inputs that it could leverage. to work on to create better outputs. All right, well, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I would highly encourage you to watch the generative AI step-by-step video if you haven't watched that. If you like this video, please go ahead and subscribe my channel. Let me know in the comments below what other Alteryx related content you'd like to see. I read every single comment and I reply to every single comment. If you have any questions for me, feel free to drop them in the comment below. Thank you so much for watching Analytics with Dave.